Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reverend Matt and I'm the Connectionalist, and today we are going to be reacting to a video by Evan Raugust. I think I'm saying that right. I've reacted to one of his videos before just recently. It's called Atheist Goes to Church for the First Time. And I think this is really important because I think a lot of churches right now that are growing are often Christians from other churches that get dissatisfied with their church and they leave to go join this better church that we're not actually reaching non-religious people. And so it's always good to take the temperature of people who are non-religious to see where the church's blind spots are. And so I think this video could be really helpful. So let's go ahead and jump right on in.
This is my friend who's an atheist.
Yeah, I don't believe in God.
So I'm challenging him to go to a bunch of different Christian churches, and we're going to see what happens. Our first stop was a Lutheran Church.
Interesting first stop.
It was calm, structured, almost meditative. But for my friend Jabin,
I've never been to church. I've never been a firm believer in anything to do with church or God. So
imagine never going to church and then you go to church. It's honestly I can't even put myself in that mindset because I have always been in church, but it's got to be pretty strange.
This service, I asked, what were your raw, honest thoughts on it?
It was one guy just speaking, and we're all gathering around and just listening to this man, and we kind of just repeated what he said.
For someone who's never been to a church before, that's not surprising. But we weren't just there to observe, we were there to have real conversations. And that's when I shared why I'm Christian. Jesus Christ, his resurrection was witnessed by over 500 people. The 12 apostles, many of his closest followers, all of them, except for one of them, died for their faith. They certainly wouldn't have died for a lie. What would be
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of the best arguments for Christianity is the event of the resurrection is super well documented, more than almost anything in world history at that time. Many people saw it. Verifiable people who actually lived experienced this and stuck to the story for the rest of their lives. It's the best argument for Christianity.
Your response to that?
It's difficult for me to believe something that happened so long ago.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With no physical evidence. I have to have seen it. I had to have seen something.
The common retort to this, though, is there's a ton of stuff in world history that we accept as fact that has way less evidence than the resurrection. That's just true.
Like this to be possible.
If you experience what we as Christians call the Holy Spirit, where you feel the spiritual presence, do you think that that could convince you of Christianity being true?
Maybe. I think I have to experience it.
Our next stop was a Byzantine Catholic Church.
Interesting. Okay, so we're going from Lutheranism to a Eastern Catholic Church, a Byzantine Catholic Church. For those of you who don't know, the Byzantine Catholic Church comes from the name of the Byzantine Empire, which was the name of the empire of Eastern Rome after the fall of Rome in 476. So from 476 all the way to 1453 AD, the Roman Empire existed in the eastern half, and its capital was Constantinople, which the capital of the city of Constantinople, before it was renamed after Emperor Constantine, the city was called Byzantium. And then it was renamed Constantinople, and then when the Turks took it in 1453, eventually they renamed it Istanbul.
It didn't feel modern, it felt timeless. Golden icons covered the walls. The priest moved solely behind the icon screen. Every action meant something. Nothing was rushed. For someone like Jabin, who had literally never been to church before until this day, it was a little bit overwhelming. He didn't really say much during the service, but the questions started pouring out. Do you think that you've learned anything about Christians so far?
I went from the beginning of the day to not even thinking about God at all, or a being like God. Now I truly believe that maybe a figure like God exists.
Wow.
That has created the world.
The longer we talked...
How about that? A response to the traditional aspects of the church. Y'all, we are seeing this more and more often. I'm telling you, smoke and lights and guitar music is not going to convert non-religious people. It's not. I think the traditions of the church have way more effect on those folks. And I know this not only through some empirical data, but a ton of anecdotal evidence. All my friends who are non-Christians, who don't go to church, they always tell me, just be the church. Just do your church stuff. You don't have to make it a rock show. And so I think that's something we really need to pay attention to and listen to.
The more became clear. We weren't just wrestling with whether God exists anymore. Jabin was starting to ask, could this specific God, the God of Christianity, actually be real? He talked to the priest, Father Nathan.
Why do you believe that Jesus Christ is real?
You have over 20,000 New Testament documents that tell us that this Jesus Christ person is a real person and multiple people believed in him. You have multiple resurrection story affirmations. You have a consistent testimony of our teachings. Jesus fulfills prophecies, multiple prophecies that the Old Testament promised would happen when the Messiah comes. Therefore, it led me to a belief in Christianity. In God, we have the foundation for relationship.
But then I realized during the service that I've given him
I mean, it's pretty easy to just like refute that and say, you know, well, I mean, just because somebody said it's true doesn't mean it's true, which is true. But at the same time, what other stuff from world history has that much evidence? Almost nothing.
a lot of logical arguments for Christianity. But that's not why I'm Christian. I'm Christian because of experiences like my friend Matthew.
What made you believe in Jesus?
Throughout going to church, I've found God in my life, and he's made a significant impact on my spiritual guidance as well as how I see the world. And I feel that my life with God has been significantly better than without it.
And as I elaborated, I don't want to be like, you're an atheist, I'm epically owning you with facts and logic.
Yeah.
I have arguments for why Christianity is true, but that's not why I believe what I believe.
What I appreciate is like how the good-naturedness of their conversation and the deep respect, right? That he said, I'm not going to just dunk on you with facts and logic or whatever, but I'm just going to like talk to you and we're just going to talk about this thing that I really care about. I think this is a really good model for what it means to actually talk to people who are non-religious.
Believe. Simply put, I feel the Holy Spirit when I worship. I've seen miracles happen in my life. I've seen real life transformations. I feel a sense of peace and comfort. And so I guess what would be your reply to how I feel?
How do we know that they're entirely related to Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I think the feelings argument is the worst argument for Christianity because people have all sorts of cultic religious feelings. I don't want to say religious experience in Christianity is cultic. I'm just saying there are cults that claim to have this experience as well. So the religious experience or feeling argument is by far the worst argument for Christianity. I can't think of one worse.
It's a little bit difficult to believe this because it's always either like mentally or physically where it was just a chance.
But Jabin wasn't just interested in whether Christianity makes you feel better because he thought those same things could be about other religions.
Sure,
He
absolutely.
wanted to know, how do we know Christianity is true?
We can't know. Eventually, you have to make a response in faith, right? We can't know with any kind of certainty because if we know, then it's not faith. There is no faith anymore. There is no believing without seeing anymore.
How do we know a loving God created the universe? And then came maybe the most honest question of all.
But when you say something like this, what made you believe that God created us out of love rather maybe it was just amusement?
I don't want to be like all like poetic and all like sappy fappy, but like life is so beautiful. If we're just a bunch of molecules, then why does music exist? Why does love exist? Why do all these beautiful colors exist? Why do the individual parts of this leaf?
I think the beauty of the world is an in-between argument. It's not as good as like the evidence-based like manuscripts of the event of the resurrection, but it's way better than the feelings argument, right? The beauty of the world and how it all comes together so well is a pretty decent argument that there's at least a God, a creator, not necessarily the Christian God, but that at least gets people off of the atheistic stump, right? It's to say, look at the world and all of its complexity. So it's not the perfect argument, but it's definitely better than the feelings argument, but not quite as good as the historical manuscripts argument.
Looks so finely crafted and so beautiful. I mean, really look at it. It's so nice. It didn't have to be that nice. If we're just random, why is the world so beautiful? We lingered on that thought as we'd entered into the Pentecostal Church. It was loud, it was intense, it was alive. The worship wasn't just music, it was emotion. People were jumping, crying, speaking in tongues. For a first-timer like Jabin saw people speaking in tongues, but had more questions about it. So we asked Adrian, who attended the church, his thoughts.
We know that someone received the Spirit of God by speaking in other tongues, but
tongues, I'm pretty skeptical about tongues.
means in an unknown language, in words, sounds unknown to that certain individual. And that's the sign that one received the gift of the Spirit.
But Jabin still wanted more evidence. How could anybody be so sure? Could the God of Christianity actually be real? Adrian shared a story.
I'm a chaplain. I'm also a minister of this church. But there was one moment where a man was unbelieving. He's seeing his wife begin to die and transition. He's beginning to lose all hope. But I tell him that God can move in his life and give him hope. And he said, okay, prove it to me. Go in that hospital room and pray for my wife, and I expect God to move. I pray this prayer. God, Jesus, grant this man one more moment to cherish, to see that you're real and that you're never given up on him. What happens is that woman, I'm praying with my eyes closed. I don't know what's happening. She shed a single tear, and he hugged me and said, I'll never doubt your God again. I believe and I have hope. So I believe.
I think religious experience like that is super powerful, and I never want to invalidate the movement of the Spirit because I do think the Spirit moves. I'm just really glad that story didn't go down the, well, show me that God's real by praying over her and that she'll be healed. And then, oh, she's healed and like all this, right? Because we see time and time again people who pray fervently for healing and it doesn't happen. So I think we have to be very careful about that. Now, Pentecostals are very much continuists, meaning they think that the apostolic age hasn't ended, that these signs that are poured out, like people being raised from the dead or like people walking who were paralyzed. And then there's cessationists who believe that those types of miracles ceased with the age of the apostles. And I'm somewhere kind of in the middle, skewing towards the side of continuism. Like, I do believe that God can heal and stuff, but I've not seen, things like people being brought back from the dead or paralytic people walking again. And almost every single instance of that people will point me to, probably in the comments, is almost verifiably a scam. So we just have to be really careful about the way we talk about spiritual healing.
Just these experiences in my life, nobody can tell me that God isn't real.
At the Pentecostal Church, people don't just believe in miracles, they expect them. And for Jabin, that was powerful. But it still left the big question. Is something real because it's felt? Or is it because it's proven? Our final stop was Calvary Chapel. Honestly, man, just take it or leave it. I'm Christian. I don't want to, push it down your throat.
Take it or leave it is actually a pretty good position. That's essentially Jesus's position. It's Jesus says, come and see. Come and see, right? I can't force this on you. Come and see, and dust your sandals off and leave if people aren't receptive, right? Like, that's essentially a pretty good posture of the heart, is like not to have your heart sharpened towards somebody who doesn't want to believe in the gospel, but to just offer it and then ask them if they want to come and see, and if not, move on.
Oh, but I hope that maybe there might be something here. No incense, no icons, no dramatic altar calls. Just a pastor, a Bible, and people gathering to listen. The style here was more casual. Teaching was straightforward, where Jabin could honestly think about everything he experienced throughout the day. And so then I asked him, what's been the biggest thing you've learned about Christians today?
Today, I feel like I learned that Christianity is a huge branch. They all believe in God, but in different ways. I think it's going to take me a lot more time to understand this and understand why they believe what they believe.
So would you say you now believe in God?
You know what? Maybe. I think maybe is the right word.
But what
moving somebody from atheism to agnosticism, it's decent.
about Jesus Christ?
It's difficult for me to acknowledge Jesus Christ, and it's difficult for me to acknowledge his entire being.
And I really respect that, and you know what, man? I'm going to be praying for you, man. Jabin didn't leave this a believer, but it did leave him thinking. And maybe faith doesn't happen all at once.
Faith comes by hearing. It doesn't always happen all at once.
Maybe it just starts with a simple maybe. Check out this video if you'd like to watch my other
A great video yet again from Evan. I really appreciate his content. Make sure you go like and subscribe to his channel. That's the way we can help our original content creators. But again, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll be curious to see what you think is the most effective way to reach non-religious people. But until next time, I'm the Connectionalist, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.